On December 4th, a serial killer smiles for the cameras.
He first took the report that she was dropped off at a bar, and he assumed someone had dropped her off.
I had this boyfriend named Smith.
Written her a letter and had broken up with her. She had that letter with her on the night she was in the Gateway Lounge. His wife ran off with a truck driver. He said Jenny used to hang out with truck drivers.
Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry it's been so long, but we're all here now and we're all together. So let's just dive right into this thing, okay? The last time we were all together, it was April 10th and the year was 2000. Your boy James was sitting in jail in Texas waiting for trial, and the charges are aggravated assault towards an elderly. His bail, because of all his past murder stuff, was set at $250,000, and he was facing anywhere from 55 years to life in prison. And his trial date was set for September 29. Because of James's age, he's like in his 40s by now. Even if he gets the lighter sentence, just the 50 years, it's still a life sentence to him because it's very unlikely that he's gonna live into his 90s, you know, to see the release date. And so now James is freaking out because if there's anything he's learned from his time in Texas, it's that he fucking hates it in Texas and he is willing to do anything to get out. So James in jail calls his brother Steven, and for the next 17 days they formulate a plan. They come up with this idea to get James from Texas to Maine. And in those 17 days, this is the best that they could come up with, okay? Hold on to your hat. On April 27th, James calls Joe Zamboni up in Maine and says, listen, I'm about to go to trial here for this aggravated assault bullshit. I'm facing 55 years, okay? I hate it here. I don't want to be here. So listen up. I will give you some information about some of these missing ladies you've been looking for if you agree to let me carry out the sentence that I'm about to get here out in Maine. This is not Joe Zamboni's first rodeo, okay, folks? You cannot hold someone in jail, let alone convict them, because they gave you some information. Past murder stuff, he was found guilty and he served his time, so that can't come up again. On paper, there's no warrants, there's no reason to hold James in jail once he would get to Maine. Probably for the first time in James's life, he's told no. Joe Zamboni says, no, I'm willing to work with you. We can work something out. You need to sweeten the pot. Let me know if or when you can offer me something better. Click. Crickets. James is a control freak. James likes to be in control of the situation, and right now, the ball is 100% in Zamboni's court, and James is losing his goddamn mind. On the morning of the 29th, the literal day of his trial, James calls Joe and says, listen, I will confess to the murder of Lynn Willette, and I will show you where her body is. If you please let me carry out the sentence that I'm about to get now in Maine. God bless Joe Zamboni. If I could shake his hand, I will. He is hearing the desperation and the despair in James's voice, and he again exploits this situation, and he says, listen, James, this is cool, this information that you offered up about Lynn, But that's just one of the 5 people that you're being investigated for. Now, me and you know that they're really only investigating 3. But Zamboni, he's a smart one, and James is stupid as fuck. James is so stupid that after he heard this, he immediately confessed everything that he did. James gets off the phone with Zamboni, goes to trial, pleads guilty, and gets his 55 years. About 7 days later, true to his word, Joe Zamboni, paperwork in hand, goes from Maine to Texas, gathers up James, and whisks him off to exactly where he wanted to be, Penobscot, Maine. And guys, let me tell you, there was some mixed emotions about this. Through this hustle and bustle and wheeling and dealing, it became, really big on the news. It was a big news story. And while this was all going on, the surviving members of the victims were being interviewed. And I listened to a podcast called Murder, She Told, and this is something that Jenny Sears' sister reportedly said. Jimmy Hicks has controlled the situation the whole time. He has always had it his way, and now he's still trying to control it by getting to come up here to Maine because he doesn't like it in Texas. Let him stay there. And other family members of the victims were asked the same or similar question. They all said the same thing. All of them said that they were absolutely willing to give up getting their murdered family members back just to know that James would be miserable rotting to death in Texas. But law enforcement gave 0 shits about that. They did what they wanted to do, and by something like October 9th, James was officially back up in Maine and in the Maine's prison system. It was around the same date on the 9th where he confessed and gave the locations of the bodies. And this is an article that I read from Seacoast Online. And it says that Jerry Lynn Towers and ex-wife Jenny Sear were found buried in the Etna yard on the outskirts of the property of Hicks's former childhood home in Etna. Lynn Willette's body was found in 2 cement buckets buried in a swampy area near a pit off 2A in Forkstown Township. Only Jen's head was found, so the article also stated that to identify her remains, a huge dental team was needed. There were dental experts and dental technicians because the only thing they really had left to identify her was her teeth.
In the fall of 2000, James Hicks leads detectives here to a house set back in the woods. As Vance Tibbetts watches, a forensic team pulls his sister's remains from a shallow grave nearby. A few feet away, police find the skull of Hicks' first wife, Jenny Sear Hicks. The next day, in a patch of woods upstate, the body of Hicks' last victim, Lynn Willette, is unearthed.
After these remains were located and it was indeed confirmed to be who James said they were going to be, James then began to give the gruesome details about what actually happened on the nights that these women went missing. Here is your trigger warning, okay? From here on out, all of it is pretty terrible. As far as morality is concerned, it's really a day crescendo from here. It really goes downhill. So just, guys, it's bad news from here on out, okay? First, we're going to talk about Jenny Sear and what happened to her. Like we had talked about earlier, on July 18th, I think it was 1977, Jennifer and their live-in nanny Susan did have that conversation, and they did make the plans for Susan to go out for the evening so Jenny could confront James with both Sue's allegation and Jen's wanting to divorce him in general. Susan leaves, and then shortly after, Jen approaches James. And much like the neighbor recalled in the previous video, a verbal fight broke out, and there was screaming and yelling and scuffling and, you know, sounds that you would hear associated with a fight. At one point, it escalated, and James lost his temper and lost control. He took his own belt off and began to strangle Jenny with it. And he obviously, realizing that it's now or never, really began to fight and really started screaming for her life. James admitted strangling Jenny with his belt until she stopped moving. Knowing that Susan was going to come home at any minute, he kind of like tossed her body onto the family couch in a crude attempt to make it look like she was asleep. According to the description of the crime scene, this is about what she looked like. Super convincing, right? Ugh. Whoop. And if you remember, the neighbor said that she had thought she heard someone. Turns out that she was right. Not only had she heard her screaming for help, but she had possibly, very likely, also heard her last words. Susan eventually does come home, and like she earlier described, walked in on this super bizarre scene. They exchanged words. James advised that she go to sleep now, and once he thought she was asleep, he then took her body and dragged it outside and began to dismember it. If you remember from before, the neighbor said that she heard chopping and sawing sounds, and she did, in fact, hear chopping and sawing sounds. He dismembered her body with a saw and then started throwing pieces of her all over Etna, including the local river, which I found very interesting because if you recall, there was this guy named Nathan Small who had replied to like an article that Jenny's parents had written in a newspaper asking for information. He had stated that, well, a man named Nathan Small replied saying that he had an ability to find missing people and that their daughter was floating down in the Bingham River in Somerset County. It turns out that he was right, she was in the river. So, like, did he see something? Or did he actually have some sort of, like, magical epiphany? Now, as to why they didn't find anything in the river, I imagine they were looking for an entire body and not, like, arms and legs. So James is driving around town with his wife and throwing her body parts out the window. All of them, except for her head. Because he had some sweet, sweet plans for that. What he did with her head was he brought it home, he put it in like your typical lunch cooler, filled it up with cement, and then proceeded to carry it around with him. He brought it to work. He carried it around with him while they were actively searching for his wife, as if he was like, had a packed lunch with him. When he wasn't using it, the kids sat on it as a bench at the table. For years, they sat on their mom's head. They sat on their mom's head for years. All this time believing what their father told them about how she just ran off with a trucker. Eventually, after many, many years, I guess, the thrill was gone of having a dismembered head, and he buried the head under an apple tree in the yard, which is where they found her. And that is why only her head was found. So after Jen, we have Jerry Lynn. James and Jerry met at the Gateway Lounge in Newport, which ironically was very, very, very close to where Jerry Lynn lived. And they were seen there genuinely having a good time and enjoying each other's company. Jerry was also seen drinking a lot, normally when she would go, she might have 1 or 2 drinks, but she didn't really get drunk. She didn't go there to drink. She went there to socialize, partly because she didn't want to drink and partly because she was a single mom. She just had other things to spend her money on. However, on this particular night, they were riding on James's dime, and James made sure that she had drink after drink after drink after drink. So she was a little more drunk than she may have normally been if she had just gone on her own. The bartender was correct when she recalled that they did not leave together. And actually, Jerry was spotted down the road alone at the local gas station convenience store. But it's here where James bumps into her again. Now, truthfully, we'll never know if he followed her there like the creeper we know he is, or if he honestly bumped into her again. But it was at this point where he offered her a ride home and she accepted.
The parents were interviewed, and it was Mr. Tibbetts. He disclosed that he was going to go to the bar and pick her up that night. And he waited up, and his words were, he heard a loud vehicle in the driveway. He assumed someone had dropped her off, and that is when he went to bed.
At some point after Jerry got into James's car, they must have discussed going swimming. And I think what the headlights were that Jerry's dad saw was James bringing Jerry home to get swimming stuff. So at that moment, he wasn't necessarily wrong. She was home, but she just left again. So they went to a lake. I think they went to Sebastopol. It doesn't say specifically, but I was kind of raised in the area, and that's just where I think they went. But nonetheless, they went to a lake. And as the evening came to an end, Jerry got in the front passenger seat of the car. However, James got in the back seat behind her and strangled her to death with his bare hands. What I think happened is that James's intentions all along were to get Jerry drunk, take her to this lake, and then take advantage of her. I think what happened was James got Jerry drunk, took her to this lake, tried to take advantage of her, and got shot down. And we all know how James loves to be in control, and we all know how he loves to hear no. And I think when this happened, he immediately lost his temper, and one of 2 things happened. Either he was like, F you, get in the car, I'm taking you home, or he was so aggressive that eventually Jerry was like, F you, I'm getting in the car, take me home. These are my own opinions. And I think after he realized the evening was not going to go the way that he planned, he lost control and he lost his temper and he slid into the back seat and strangled her to death. After he did that, he took her body and put her in the trunk of his car, where he left her for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, he took her body out, he dismembered her, and then he brought the pieces and buried them under an old chicken coop in his childhood yard at his home in Etna, Maine. So after Jerry Lynn, we get to Lynn Willett, his first actual confession. Lynn's case was a lot different than the other cases. I believe that as poorly as it may have been, this was premeditated, and as bad as it was, James had a plan, or tried to have a plan. So James and Lynn met because James hired Lynn as a maintenance mechanic at the hotel that he worked at. So he was her boss. And immediately after he hired her, he began to pursue a relationship with her. Lynn was described to be a very intelligent woman. She was well educated. She went to the army. She was said to be a jack of all trades, and she by no means needed a man to take care of her or provide for her. So she was not necessarily looking for any sort of long-term relationship. However, James wore her down and she agreed to go on a couple dates with him. They went out to eat a couple times. And it was on one of these dates where James just announces that for whatever reason he's going to lose his house and he needs to move in with her. And he steamrolled his way into her apartment and then kind of forced her into a relationship. She was basically kidnapped in plain sight. Now, this is like James's ideal living situation because he's now her boss and her roommate or her lover or whatever their status was. So you can bet your bottom dollar that he took that boss mentality from work, brought it home, and applied it to that relationship. So what happened was, at some point, James was asked to go to the police department to be questioned about these other women because, yes, he was charged and served time for Jen, but they still haven't found her body. And now Jerry Lynn's missing. And James pulled a Hicks power move and agreed to come in for questioning, but brought Lynn with him. So when the police officer saw that he was in a new relationship, he kind of shifted his focus from his initial questioning to making sure that this woman understood that this guy was sketchy and she maybe was not safe. So he, just made sure to mention that he had already been in jail for murder and now this other woman was missing and he was kind of a suspect for it. He was kind of leaving these breadcrumbs, these little red flags, and hoping that Lynn would pick them up. And thank God she did. She picked up these red flags, began to slowly move out, and ultimately moved in with her mom and left James with the apartment. So what happened? At some point, either Lynn called James or James called Lynn to discuss some hypothetical things left at the apartment. So Lynn went to the apartment to talk to James, and at some point, surprise, surprise, a fight broke out, and James lost his temper and then lost control and then strangled Lynn with his bare hands again until she died. He then put her body in a pine box that he pre-made. Now, I don't know why they word this as being a pine box. It's clearly a coffin. He knew what he was going to do, and he made a coffin in advance, anticipating that he was going to need a place to put her body. So he then put her body in this coffin, brought the coffin to the hotel that they worked at, and put it in her maintenance closet, knowing that only he and her had a key to it. Now you could imagine, after being in a pine box in a heated room after several days, it started to get a little bit whiffy. At which point he had to take the coffin out of the closet, take her out of the coffin. He dismembered her body, put her in a bunch of buckets, filled them with cement, drove to Forktown Township, put her in a swamp, and then to explain her absence, he put his bike in her car, drove her car to Dysart's, which is a popular 24-hour truck stop restaurant, left her car there, rode his bike home, and then when he was questioned about her disappearance, he again, because he's super fucking clever, insisted that she ran off with a long-haul trucker.
On December 4th, a serial killer smiles for the cameras.
James, what do you have to say to the families of your victims?
Mr. Hicks, what does the name Lynn mean to you?
Inside the courtroom, the families gather. The killer sits at the defense table, seemingly at ease. The judge hands down 2 concurrent life sentences for the murders of Geraldine Towers and Lynn Willett, and 55 years for the assault on June Moss in Lubbock. After 23 years, the killing is done. James Hicks' legacy of grief is complete. He expresses neither remorse nor an understanding of his crimes. The only certainty, it appears, is this:
I said to him one day, I said, Jimmy, you need to spend the rest of your life in a prison, locked up. I said, because if you don't, another woman is going to die. And he looked at me and he said, you're right, I've come to realize that.
One of the reasons that I was so interested in this case, other than the fact that it happened so close to where I grew up, was James himself. Because while I was researching this, I had to dig into his childhood. I had to get into his past a little bit. And what I noticed was that his profile doesn't really fit the profile of someone who you would think would grow up to be a serial killer. There's usually like some red flags someone might give out to let you know that, you might want to keep an eye on them. But he didn't really meet any of this. He was born and raised in Etna, Maine. His parents did get divorced when he was little, but I found no instances of abuse or neglect. I don't know why his parents got divorced, but I know lots of people's parents get divorced, so I don't really think we can necessarily lump that into the list of red flags per se. He did grow up relatively poor, but they had a house, he had food, he had clothes. He wasn't showing up to school, half naked and hungry or anything like that. I didn't see anything where it mentioned that he was diagnosed with any sort of mental illness. When he was a little kid, like preteen, there was a period of time where he killed a couple small animals, but it didn't go on and it didn't progress. And I would be willing to bet that that happened about the time that his parents were getting divorced. I'm not justifying it or anything like that. I'm just saying, as far as profiling goes, usually they start with killing small animals and it keeps on going and progresses into people. It doesn't abruptly stop. He didn't wet the bed or set fires or anything like that. In high school, he was quite popular. He did a lot of extracurricular activities. He was on a lot of school sports teams. He did volleyball and golf, and I think he even might have done track. I really, other than the period of time with the animals, I couldn't find anything negative about him. I think he was clearly a narcissist, but if you surround yourself with the right people, it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. When I say negative in this context, I mean like killing people. Cult leaders, for example, they're all narcissists, but they found a group of people who are easy to manipulate and who he always hears yes, yes, yes from. So he's getting what he wants. His ego's getting stroked. He's the center of attention. He doesn't have any reason to lash out. What he should have done was try to be a cult leader instead of a serial killer. His guidance counselor really dropped the ball on career day. Those are the reasons why I was interested in this case. I think that's going to wrap it up for today, guys. I did try to do things a little bit different, so please let me know below if you liked it or how you liked it. Tips and suggestions, stuff like that. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoyed what you saw. Any type of engagement really just helps our channels to grow. And as always, please be kind and be safe. Bye.